Welcome. Thank you so much for joining me today. We're going to be talking about the classics of stage magic. Classic stage effects. First of all, let me discuss what a classic is. Now, I've done this before. I'm doing a series of 3 on the classics. I'm doing card magic, I'm doing parlor magic, and I'm doing stage magic. Today it's stage magic time. What I consider to be a classic, my definition of a classic, is pretty much the same for card magic, pretty much the same for parlor, but with some differences because of the difference in venue. You know, when you're doing close-up, many times you're doing restaurant magic. You're uptight and personal with a couple of people. When you're doing parlor, you've got maybe 25, 30, maybe 100 people. When you're doing full stage, man, now you're in an auditorium. So the definition has to change a little bit, but it's pretty much the same. Number one, it creates astonishment and mystery for children and adults. I consider a classic something that goes across generational lines. Kids are going to enjoy it. The adults are not going to walk out because it's childish. People stay and watch no matter what their age because it's so simple, it's so direct, it's so straightforward. It can be performed surrounded or outside. Believe it or not, there are stage effects that can meet that criteria, and I'm going to give you some. It can be easily transported and set up. Now, easy transport is relative, and I'll talk about that when I talk about some of these effects. When you're doing stage, when you've decided, I'm going to do stage magic, you're probably not going to pack small and play big as much as you might want. You're going to have to lift. You know, you're going to have a strong back. There's going to be some lifting involved, and we'll talk about that. The plot is simple. You saw a woman in half, you put her back together. The plot is simple. It's visual. People don't have to think about it. People don't have to you don't have to explain it to them. They can watch it. It's relatively easy to perform, which leaves you free to concentrate on your presentation. And finally, it's time tested, and by that I mean a number of magicians have done it over a long period of time. Long period means 25 to 100 years. That's a long period. The sawing illusion, by the way, is over 100 years old. Now, when it was first done by P.T. Selbit, it was not a sawing in half, it was a sawing through. But the sawing illusion is a classic. Any variation of a sawing illusion is a classic. And it's been around a long, long time, and many, many magicians have done variations of it. Now, let me give you 4 examples of what I consider to be the classics of stage magic. Number 1, the sword basket. If you are thinking the sword basket is too simplistic, don't. The Pendragons established their reputation on their sword basket. Now, granted, they were using fire in a wicker basket. That's pretty scary stuff. But the sword basket is not to be overlooked. It is still a mystery for audiences, and it's light as a feather, man. That'll fit in your trunk, and it's not heavy, and it plays really well for a large audience. Number 2, the sub-trunk, what I call the sub-trunk. Some people call it Houdini's metamorphosis. It's okay if you call it that. I call it a substitution trunk because that's what's going on. Again, the trunk is most of these trunks, the crate style, for example, can break down. So you can break down the trunk, pack it up, set it up at the show. I never did that. When I used a crate style trunk, I would transport it completely together because I didn't want to spend the time putting a trunk together at the show. So I would get a van or a truck, and I would move it in the truck, and I would move it intact. My point is, though, that a crate style can break down. Now, today I use a steamer. I just love the romance. I love the history. I love the ambiance of a steamer. So that's what I do, and I love my steamer, but you know, the sub-trunk is just, when that switch happens that quickly, 1, 2, 3, it's me. When that switch happens, the audience just audibly gasps. You know, it's just a phenomenal thing to see. The Zig Zag illusion, invented by Robert Harbin. I love it. Not only can you do it surrounded, not only should you do it surrounded. Remember, Robert Harbin invented that illusion to be done in a club setting where he was surrounded. So the zigzag can and should be done surrounded because it was invented for that purpose. Not only can you do that trick surrounded, but you can, if in a pinch, you get there early, you don't have an assistant, you get there early, you get somebody that's going to fit well in the box, you recruit them, you train them, you can do that. I mean, you know, I'll tell you what, if you're going to do that, what you want to do is you want to make a little step for inside of the box. Some people are taller, some are shorter, right? So you get a really tall person, they don't need the step, take it out. Get a really short person, put a step in there so it lifts them up. Anyway, that's just a little clue. The zigzag. Finally, the broom suspension or the three-sword suspension. Both of them can be done surrounded. I'm not going to get into the methodology. I realize that there's some difficulty there. Frankly, I stopped doing it. I was doing the broom suspension. I stopped because I didn't want all the hassle. But it is a classic. It can be done surrounded. Now, another one that I want to mention that isn't mentioned very often in magic forums and so on. It's kind of downplayed, but a Super X or and if you're doing family events, don't overlook the flying carpet, which is a much smaller Super X. I just think they're great effects. I really do. Anyway, folks, those are my classics of stage magic. I hope you enjoyed it. Please comment down below. I love your comments. Please subscribe if you've not done so already. Thank you so much for joining me. Have a great day.